journalist. Next this morning, we're going to talk about dibblings, or donor siblings. They're the children who are biologically connected, related through donated eggs or sperm. Around 2,000 children a year are conceived through donors in this country. Donor siblings in the UK, though, have to wait until they're 18 to try and find each other, whereas in America, children can be traced from birth. We'll discuss why in a sec. But first, we're going to introduce you to Yori. He's 2 years old and he has 11 dibblings right across the world, many of whom he's now in touch with. Yori's mum is a BBC journalist and she's decided to tell us what life is like for her son as a donor sibling. Our reporter Joe Black has been to meet them.
This is 2-year-old Yori. He's being brought up as an only child in London, but he's actually part of an extraordinary extended family, a family he's only just beginning to get to know. Yori has come for a play date with 11-month-old Sam. What's unusual is that Sam's parents have brought him to the UK all the way from Seattle on the west coast of America. They've travelled 5,000 miles to see Yori, who is his half-brother.
So you see pictures and we share pictures on Facebook and stuff, but it's not the same as when you actually see. And he's also like the same build and kind of same movements and stuff and similar character. It's really interesting. But yeah, I mean, this could be Yori a year ago.
We look at Yori and think, yeah, that's probably what he's going to look like in a year. So that's kind of fun.
Yori and Sam's mothers both used sperm from a donor in America. The donor's samples were sent to the two women and they both became pregnant through the same donor. Yori was born in London in 2013. A year later, in Seattle, Sam was born. The clinic helps half-brothers and sisters get in touch if the families want to, something that doesn't happen in the UK until people reach the age of 18. This means Yori can grow up knowing his donor siblings, or dibblings as they're also known.
Dibblings.
Sam isn't Yori's only dibbling. He has another brother in Canada.
Say hi. Those are your brothers over there. Hi, Jack.
Jack's mum, Megan, used the same clinic and sperm donor as Yori and Sam's parents.
It's been wonderful to see all these siblings, the characteristics of them. Been neat to see because a lot of it, you don't know what comes from who when you have a child. So, and especially with a donor, to be able to make that connection, it's quite nice.
In total, Yori has 7 half-brothers and 4 half-sisters dotted around the world. As well as Sam in Seattle and Jack in Ontario, there's Ava, who also lives in Ontario, Harry and Phoebe in Australia, twins Jordan and Sophie in Boston, and the family also includes 3 other children in Florida and 1 in Montreal. It's such a big extended family that Megan has created a Facebook page for everyone to stay in touch.
It's been amazing, embracing the children and just being able to meet them. We've met a few in person as well as online, and looking forward to more. And it gives him more family and it'll let him know more about himself once he's older. Hopefully we can all get together at some point. There's been talk about it, different places, different times eventually, but while they're all young, it's not as interesting for them, but as they get older, they'll be able to see they have these siblings all over the world. So they'll be able to travel if they wanted to and have places to stay for free, hopefully.
America and Britain are similar in that donor-conceived offspring must be 18 to trace biological parents. But when it comes to finding half-brothers and sisters, there is a difference. In the UK, the regulator, the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, will only connect siblings at 18. In the States, they can find each other from birth, either via the clinic or the donor siblings registry.
Even though we had some trepidation about joining a group full of people who were his half-siblings, it's nice to leave it up to him.
Yeah.
You know, to at least know you guys are out there and we don't have to be best friends, right? I mean, you know, some of us will get along and some of us may not, you know, but the kids could potentially find one another.
Yeah.
You know.
Because we knew that a donor would have a lot of other children in the US. We did not know, we had no reason to expect it would be around the world, and it's just been a wonderful new dimension.
Yes.
remember when I just had him, and I just remember being still in the hospital and thinking, I wasn't actually really thinking much about the donor, because I think you go into it and you know it's an unknown donor, and you kind of accept that.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, God, he's probably got siblings. And it's really sad because he doesn't know them and he won't know them. And obviously I grew up with siblings, and I thought if it was me, I'd really want to know. And then suddenly, you know, a few months later, then we actually got put in contact with each other, which was something I wasn't ever expecting.
Modern family structures are changing, meaning people are choosing to use donors to have children.
Well, the other thing that we were talking about the other day is how different all of these families are, right?
Yeah.
And how strange it is for us all to try and meet or...
Yeah, so a whole set of people who would never otherwise meet are thrown together.
Right.
We have religious people, we have straight people, we have gay people, we have single people.
Yeah.
All around the world.
Yep.
Although the fertility industry has been established for decades, being a donor or creating children this way can still be a controversial subject. But for these children, this connection brings a new family and offers a sense of identity.
There's a certain closeness, and we see it in the way the kids interact as well. I mean, Sam is not like this with every other boy. You know, there's an immediate fun and playfulness with Yuri.
He keeps stroking him and kissing him, and he just doesn't really do that usually with other kids. So there's obviously a connection, which is a lot deeper than, you know, just a kind of, there obviously is a biological connection there that is very interesting, that we're starting to explore.
Definitely brothers, aren't they? See how he poked him in the eye at the end. That film by Joe Black, and you can read more about the story on the BBC News site. Let's talk then about these different rules between the USA and the UK when it comes to donor-conceived children trying to contact their siblings and indeed their donor, their biological mother or father. Joining us today is Wendy Kramer, who is founder of the Donor Sibling Registry based in the US. Also with us, we've got Lee Phoebe, who lives in Melbourne in Australia and has 18-month-old daughter, Phoebe, through a donor. Here with me, we've got Laura Vitchens, who's from the National Gamete Donation Trust. Gametes being eggs, embryos and sperm. And Walter Merrick is here too, chair of the Donor Conception Network, and he has 2 grown-up children conceived using a sperm donor. Welcome all of you. Laura, first of all, what do you think of Yori's story and the connections he's now made as a little boy with so many half-siblings around the world, all sharing the same father?
It's wonderful that they can make connections, and clearly that's what's needed, and we see that in the UK as well. But the interesting thing is, Yori, because of the UK guidelines, he will be able to find out who his donor is by the time he's 18. He has got that right. That's enshrined in law. Identifiable information, whilst the American children don't have that right. So in actual fact, via Yori, they will be able to find out who the donor is. Because they have the same thing that's happening in the US, they could actually do in the UK. So in that sense, it's not completely the same thing either.
Well, no, because if as a donor-conceived child here, you have to wait until you're 18 before you can try to contact your half-siblings.
You have to wait to do it via the HCVA, but nothing stops.
Which is the Human Fertilisation and Embryology
Which is the legislator. And there is a reason why that's in place. And there are good things about having a legislator. And
well, what is the reason?
The donor-conceived children actually want to find out about their donor. So what happens in the UK is that children can find out who the donor is. It's enshrined in law, and there's no ifs and buts about that. What happens in the US, they can only find out about the donor if he happens, or she, but mostly he happens to be registered via the donor sibling registry
I don't understand why you have to wait till you're 18 if you're a donor-conceived child to contact your half-siblings.
You actually don't have to.
Well,
they could
officially,
do the same.
You could do it through social media. You could try and track them down, yes.
Well, you can do it through our organisation.
Or your organisation, absolutely.
Absolutely. We have a facility which has been on our site for a while. We're reviving it to allow for a donor, for a sibling connection to be made, if that's what people want to do. But it's always going to be something that is a voluntary thing, that parents who want to do this will do it, and those who don't want to do it won't, because it's not something that's going to be a part of the regulator, as Laura's just mentioned.
Let's bring in Wendy then, who set up the Donor Sibling Registry based in the US. First of all, the regulations run by the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, this idea of waiting till you're 18 before you can contact your donor and also your half-siblings. What do you think?
Well, we're a worldwide registry, so anyone in the UK can join our registry and make mutual consent contact, either donors to offspring, half-sibling to half-sibling, at any time. So we think we want to empower the families to choose for themselves when to establish contact. And for many, that's right from the beginning. So we don't think that people should, that organizations should be telling people when they can and cannot make mutual consent contact with their first degree genetic relatives. And we've facilitated now over 15 years more than 12,000 of these connections. So we know it works. We know it's very joyful for the families. Medical information is shared, and these connections are very, very important for the families.
I don't know if you know, Wendy, but the HFEA here, the regulator, recommends that before trying to contact half-siblings at the age of 18, donor-conceived children receive counselling.
Not necessary. I mean, do we counsel children before they meet their first cousins? No, children are just introduced to other children, and either they get along or they don't get along. They don't need counseling. I think the problem comes in with the adults because they put unnecessary angst in there. Kids are fine meeting each other. We've had more than 12,000 of them. There's no problem. And I think people on my website, people who have connected would reiterate this. Counseling is not necessary for children to meet their genetic relatives.
Laura, do you think counselling is necessary?
For some, it will be necessary. I mean, we run the Donor Conceived Register, which is for donor conceived before 1991. And we offer that service, and it's part of what we have to offer. We feel that it needs to be there. But it's right that in many cases people don't need it. The peer support is very important.
OK. Lee Phoebe in Melbourne then. How important has it been for you to connect with your little girl Phoebe's 11 half-siblings, which includes 2-year-old Yori in London, children in America, and all across the world, in fact?
It's been amazing. I think it's of paramount importance for her to have a feeling of who her identity is. I think it was Wendy who said that children don't have any problem with it. We first Skyped Yori a couple of days ago, and they were just fascinated, Phoebe and Yori, to talk to each other via Skype. I just think it's so important that children are raised by a tribe and have the ability to have the connections to make that tribe, sort of like. It's just been amazing. It's been amazing. We just feel so blessed that we've got so many lovely people that and for people that Phoebe can grow up with and have a sense of her identity, not just from my partner and myself, but also from her donor.
Do you ever think it's odd that one man has donated sperm that's helped create so many children around the world?
My partner and I have been talking about this. It is a pretty mind-blowing thing, and hopefully he can join our website and meet the children. I think his mind will be a bit blown because he has so many. In Australia, we are able to meet him, or Phoebe's able to meet him when she turns 16. And we imported the sperm obviously from America, and we weren't allowed to import sperm unless the donor had full disclosure, which meant that he had to be known, because you can still get sperm and you never, in certain countries, that you can never find out who the donor was. So that was through our federal laws that we had that. And I think it's really important for her. We wanted her to know who the donor was when she comes of age, but we had no idea that the Dibbling registry was available for us.
Okay.
And when we first found out, it was just full on, but it's absolutely been wonderful for us.
Walter, your grown-up children were conceived using sperm donation. Have they ever shown any interest in either discovering if they've got half-siblings or wanting to know who the donor is?
Well, I've got 2 children. One of them probably would be interested in finding out about half-siblings, or is certainly interested in half-siblings. The other one certainly is not. No. But I think the most important thing around this is that parents should tell their children at an early age that they are donor-conceived, because unfortunately there are still people who have children through donor conception and who are uncertain or unhappy about telling them at all. And I think there's a real problem there.
Well, that's such an interesting area, because, and I wonder what you think, Wendy and Lee, because there's certainly secrecy when it comes to donors of sperm and eggs and embryos, and potentially also in the past anyway, shame. Is that fair, Wendy?
Yeah. Absolutely, shame and infertility. But here's the thing, telling is just the beginning of the story. So telling is important, but given that about 50% of people that use donor sperm are single moms, about a third of them are in LGBT families, less than 20% of people now are heterosexual couples that are using donor sperm. So it's less of an issue now. But the most important thing is telling is very important, but then it's after telling that the real job takes place. Absolutely. When you tell a child, there's going to be curiosity. They're going to want to search. What happens if they find? What happens if they don't find? So I think telling is a great place to start, but it's just the beginning of a child's journey.
Couldn't agree more.
Although these statistics do not reflect what's happening in the UK, the majority are still heterosexual couples who have completely different dynamics. And going back to the counselling as well, it's all lovely when there are 11 siblings, but when it becomes 111 siblings, it becomes a completely different ballgame, and that's the issue as well. So in that case, I do think they need counselling.
But they still have the right to connect with each other. And again, the children, we've had 15 years of experience. We've done the research. We've published the research. We have 12,000 people. And I'll just tell you, in my experience and what I've learned, counselling is just not necessary for the children.
In the UK, there are about 2,000 children born each year using donated sperm or eggs. And I wonder if you think, Laura, the fact that families are connecting to each other, either using Wendy's site or through Walter's organisation, means that the HFEA, the regulator here, are perhaps a bit behind the times.
No, I think it's a completely different ballgame. There is no limit to how many times the donors can be used in the US. Well, there is in the UK. So at most, it can be 10 families, and there are only 9 donors in the UK of the last 10 years who've had as many as 20 children. Now, if we keep them in mind, the 50% who will tell, so less than 10 will actually know that a donor conceived. If we then cut off the number who are not interested, let's make it 3. So only 7 per donor may want to know, which is a completely different ballgame from hundreds. Okay. And I think we need to keep that in mind as well.
Lee, a really, really quick response. This is from one viewer who says, where are the fathers? This is messing with life. The next generation won't know where they're from. Stop this. What would you say briefly, Lee?
I don't think you need a father to raise children. I think if you've got 2 adults, whether they be male, female and female, Phoebe is the luckiest child. She's just so happy and well-rounded. So I don't think you need a father. We have a donor, but I don't think you need a father. I think you need another partner to fulfil the picture.
Thank you all so much. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thank you, Lee, in Melbourne, and Wendy Farmer in the States, and Laura and Walter. Thank you. Thank you very much.